Tell us about what you know at this point in time that we just briefly talked about in terms of Steve Scalise and Speaker Ryan.
Well, people have been saying for months, members of his staff, close friends of Paul Ryan, that he was tired. He had made his wife a promise to spend more time with his kids as they entered their teen years. He was working hellacious hours, as you do when you're Speaker of the House, and it was one of the promises they made his wife he wouldn't do when he assumed the office. Remember, Paul Ryan didn't run for Speaker so much as it was thrust upon him. And he's been thinking about it. But there had been thoughts that if Paul Ryan left the office, it would weaken the GOP position for reelection coming into the midterms. Well, right now, with 55 seats, the Democrats leading in 30, it's going to take something of a Hail Mary pass to win Paul Ryan or not. The question is the Hail Mary pass Steve Scalise of old Jefferson? Well, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people in the caucus who believe that Steve Scalise's personal story, having been shot, recovering, his countenance, his personality, his ability to be sort of the anti-Trump, sort of, aw shucks, this is how it really is, might be a curative going into a very difficult midterms. Scalise himself, while not denying an interest in the Speaker's job, has been very blunt that he will not run against Kevin McCarthy, the majority leader, if Kevin McCarthy wants the job. Understand that Representative McCarthy is a close friend of Steve Scalise's. When Scalise decided to run for Congress, even before then, Kevin McCarthy came down to Louisiana. Scalise showed him around the Louisiana legislature, and the two of them struck up a friendship to where McCarthy endorsed Scalise early on. He's been a supporter of Scalise to become whip, to move up through the conference. And this is something that if McCarthy wants it, he gets it. He's the next Speaker. However, Scalise is a lot more popular with the Trump administration than McCarthy is. There was an interesting incident recently where the president got up and everybody rose, and he came out and publicly said, McCarthy, you got to go faster. Scalise was up before you have. And he was, and the president has, as we saw from the State of the Union, pointed out, Steve Scalise, there is a question: will the conference actually force Scalise into the Speaker's job? It's also true, and I'll defer to Jim on this, that Scalise, no one knows a conference like a whip. I mean, I hate to point out the House of Cards example, but the whip knows where all the bodies are buried. But Scalise has really learned his conference, the members of the Republican Party in the House, and he's extremely popular with them. So there's a lot of saying that there may be forced to put it in. There's certainly no denying that Steve Scalise has had his eye on the speakership for some time. He's just very loyal to his friend. And Jim knows the personality of Steve Scalise and how he interacts with people even better than I.
Okay, Jim, take it over.
Well, following up what Chris said, yeah, Steve Scalise could be one of the most personable elected officials that we have in Louisiana. I know that I watched him very closely at the Washington Mardi Gras Ball a couple of years ago. Took my daughter up there, and we stood over the side of the room. My daughter, who used to be host on CNN, the Today Show, very observant of politicians nationally, was amazed at how he related. The old Bill Clinton trick of looking someone directly in the eye, even though you're surrounded by hundreds of people. And Steve worked that room in a very special way, and Campbell and I were very impressed with how well he did, and that covers over to how he deals, as Christopher said, with individual legislators. With the whip, you give out the campaign cash, you deal on a regular basis, much more so than the majority leader does with individual members of the House. And so you build up a rapport, a special relationship, and Steve's a very likable guy. And then, of course, this huge flow of sympathy and the way he handled the shooting also plays into his favor. Two quick comments. I guess the downside, as Christopher said, is his loyalty to McCarthy, and how that will play out. Will there be pressure within the other members of Congress to push McCarthy out? I think it's going to take a real internal push to push McCarthy aside and go with Scalise. And to some people, I think there may be a feeling of how well he's going to be able to hold up. You've got all these bullets in you like he has. He's put on a great face, but the fact remains that's got to be terribly tiring on your body. Does Steve want to take that on and go through the pressures, as Christopher referred to, of the tremendous day in, day out scheduling you'd have to do as Speaker? Is his physical situation, is he capable of doing that? That's something only Steve knows, and whether he'll want to back that off. As a side note, though, history kind of plays with Scalise a little bit. Of all the congressional districts in America, the focus of Jefferson Parish line, Orleans Parish, has been the focus of a lot of activity leading towards the Speaker. Hale Boggs was on the track to be Speaker. He was Majority Leader, represented both Orleans and Jefferson Parish, killed in October 16th, 1972. Remember it well because I was over in Paris, France with some of their legislators. And we got the word that Hale Boggs' plane went down. He was destined to be Speaker of the House, and that was cut short. Then we had Bob Livingston that was ascending to the speakership. Christopher was at 1994, I believe.
Yeah.
And, he had to step down because of some problems in his personal life, and very popular guy. So,
on the day of the Clinton impeachment in the House, and that was one of the most dramatic moments in American political history. You know, where they yelled, "You resign," and he looks up, and says, "Therefore, I shall resign." You know, it was great moment, but bad for Louisiana, to say the least. You know,
well, there's that was just in the last, say, 35, 40 years that were almost Speaker from the greater New Orleans area. So either that's a curse or maybe three's a charm. And it's the third one. So it's either three's a charm or it's a curse in terms of whether he'll rise. Very popular guy. And to you, Steve, I might say this. I think that there's going to be a lot of jockeying going on in the next several days of Steve Scalise, very differential to McCarthy, and saying, of course, he has the first right of raising to the speakership. But what will be the internal politics in the background of those who would rather have Scalise? What will the Trump people do? What will the internal lobbying going? It'd be a fascinating thing to be involved in the internal debates going on within the Republican caucuses. And so there may be some, for Scalise to win, there's going to be almost a mini uprising amongst, say, more conservative Republicans, the Trump people. You put all that together to let McCarthy know, well, maybe I can't pull this off. So